In our last session, we began to look at Zechariah having regained his speech. He's filled with the Holy Spirit and he has this prophetic utterance. And in Luke 1 verses 76 to 79, we see Zechariah prophesying over his newborn son. Prior to this, in the few verses before that, he's prophesied about Jesus, and so being filled with the Holy Spirit, we see there's a recognition of Jesus. But then Zechariah turns his focus to his newborn son, this longed for hope that they never thought they would have, where their dream has become a reality. They have a son. All parents have hopes and dreams for their children when they're born. I remember holding my son in my arms, my firstborn son in my arms, in the hospital. I've recognition with Del Boy, if you've ever seen Only Fools and Horses, where Del Boy's holding his son and looking out the window and talking to Damien. I remember holding my son in my arms and praying over him and speaking over him what I believe God wanted for his life. All parents have hopes and dreams for their children. And I think some parents try to achieve their own dreams vicariously through their children. But sometimes when we've lived with disappointment or we've lived with things where I couldn't achieve this, we seek to live it through our children. My wife has a secret that I'm going to share with you. She likes something called Dance Moms. Dance Moms, I think it is. And it's an American series looking at mums who are pursuing their children, to their girls to be dancers. And you see in that program these mums often trying to live out their own dreams through their children. And I'm not sure that's always healthy. There's also a sense sometimes of a generational inheritance. And when we have children, there's always this argument of nature versus nurture. I remember observing people who had brought their children up in one way, where they'd brought them up in church and they'd been strict with church. And I've seen people who've been strict with their children in church whose children have followed God and who've gone away from God. I've seen parents who've been more relaxed and let their children make their own way, whose children have gone on with God and gone away from God. There's no guarantees. And this question of nature and nurture is a really interesting debate that we can have till the cows come home. But there is something of a generational inheritance that we pass on to our children. And Zechariah, as this new father, prophesies over his long-awaited son. He declares purpose over his new son. And three things that we can see from this. First of all, we see that it turns the private place into the public place. Gabriel's words to Zechariah in the temple were only heard by Zechariah, and then Zechariah is struck dumb for 9 months. Everybody else would be completely unaware of what Gabriel had said to Zechariah. And when Zechariah regains his speech, he now prophesies what he's heard in the secret place publicly. He speaks over his son the prophetic word that Gabriel has given him in the secret place, and he declares it for everyone to hear. And in that, he's risking the crowd. People's expectations and questions. This priest's son is being born, and him standing up and prophesying that his son is going to be the forerunner, the one of the voice crying out in the wilderness. The whole of the nation were looking for the Messiah. They knew the words of the prophets that there would be this Elijah character who would come, the voice of one crying in the wilderness. So for Zechariah to declare the angel's words from the secret place, in the private place, into the public place, he's risking the crowd saying, what do you think you're doing, declaring this over your newborn son?